And good morning. It's always a pleasure to have Karen Onan, and this morning as well, I have Michelle Thomas, and they are from the East Central Regional Development Commission, and under that heading, they are part of the RTCC, which is the Regional Transportation Coordinating Council. It's a pleasure this morning because Karen and Michelle are going to introduce our guests this morning.
We are very, very happy to be here, Robin. Thank you so much. Today we have with us Jill Brown, who is the Public Information Officer from the NLX, or Northern Lights Express Alliance. Jill, it's a pleasure to have you on. There's been some great happenings, new events that have taken place with the Northern Lights Express. Tell us what's happening.
So yes, Jill Brown, I've been with the NLX Alliance since 2007. And you talk about exciting events happening. I have been in pinch-me mode here for a couple of weeks. Can't believe, after working on this for so long, we have achieved a significant milestone. And that is state funding of the project. The project is going to be intercity passenger rail service that will operate between Minneapolis and Duluth on 152 miles of existing tracks, 4 round trips per day, maximum speeds up to 90 miles per hour. Your travel time from end to end would be about 2.5 hours, and you'd be able to connect, especially on the Minneapolis end, to rides to the airport, to the Mall of America, even to the Midwest Rail Network, get to other states. We've been working on it for a very long, long time. But the legislature chose this last session to be the one where they made the commitment and said, we will commit 20% of the cost, and we will go for the federal 80% contribution, and people will be able to ride.
How does the NLX, Jill, work with MnDOT? How does that all come together, I guess, is the question.
And there are many, many players. The NLX Alliance, my client, that's a collection of cities and counties along the tracks. They got together in 2007 to say, we will advocate for looking at this corridor. We will champion a data-driven process to determine if passenger rail can be brought back to this corridor. MnDOT, the Minnesota Department of Transportation, they're like the parent of the project. They will be the ones responsible for overseeing how it rolls out. Amtrak is another player because they are most likely the organization that's going to run the train. Mm-hmm. State of Minnesota is the funder. There's the checkbook, as is the federal government with the bigger checkbook. Mm-hmm. Those are the main players.
I'm just amazed. You said you started on all this in 2007. Is that what you said?
Yes, correct.
Oh, my gosh, girl, this has been your life here for a long time, hasn't it?
I'd love to say I grew up on NLX. It's a long process, as it should be. This is a big investment for all of us. Mm-hmm. This is a commitment, and this is a change of lifestyle. It shouldn't be easy to do. Mm-hmm. So for all those early years, studies had to be done. Mm-hmm. Each corridor had to be evaluated. If you want to get from Minneapolis to Duluth, how many different ways can you get there? Not only are the tracks, but any place that ever had a track before had to be studied. And the Minneapolis to Duluth corridor on the existing BNSF tracks had to prove it was the best route. And then all the environmental assessment. What kind of impact would it be to the environment? When they looked at every dollar we would spend on getting the train up and running, they were able to prove that we'd get more than $1 back, like $1.10 to $1.69 for every dollar we invest. It comes back to us in economic development and better quality of life with improved mobility, increased choices in transportation options, increased safety, and environmental sustainability. So it took a while to study. Those were all done by 2018, and then we needed to pursue the funding. And it took a few tries.
Good things come to those who wait, though, Jill.
I think you're right.
And that's what we're going to go with, absolutely. Did you have a question, Michelle, for Jill?
There was a passenger rail that went from Minneapolis to Duluth.
All those years ago, right?
Correct. It ran until Easter Day in 1985, I want to say, middle 80s, and funding was discontinued from the state. That train service was much slower than the new one will be. and not as comfortable as the new one will be, nor did it have Wi-Fi like we will be able to offer, with tables for business people to work on their way back and forth, for families to put out the family games or the family snacks and enjoy the scenery. It's going to be a very different experience.
The stops will be in our region, will be in Cambridge and in Hinckley. Cambridge is pretty well set up as to where it's going to be in Cambridge, but Hinckley is still kind of up in the air a little bit, right?
Well, Hinckley has had a spot that was selected in the studying process. It's near their school. I would imagine now, as this goes from potential to reality, all decisions will be reviewed and conversations will be revisited.
How much input does the city have for the location of the station?
The Minnesota Department of Transportation will engage all stakeholders as this project moves forward. That will be the expectation from the legislators, from our federal representatives, and from the local folks. We all expect to have a chance to be heard and to have some influence over how this rolls out to make sure it is possible service.
I'm assuming they'll have organized opportunities for people to give their input.
Absolutely. In the first several years of studying the route, there were planned engagement opportunities throughout, and that can be expected again. I anticipate this time around not just something being studied. I bet there will be more involvement.
What would they have for an anticipated, time when all this would come together? Because I have a feeling it's going to take a while.
It is going to take a little while. MnDOT, the Minnesota Department of Transportation, lead the review of the decisions to date. Anything needs updating and studies, that's all got to occur. One new thing that happened in this legislative session was funding for locomotives and cars. We had not asked for that in the past. We need to order those. Yeah. One of the reasons they chose to put money in for equipment is because in the long run, it's a better deal for Minnesotans. Instead of using Amtrak's old equipment, which we would have no guarantee of having access to, we will be buying the new, shiny, comfortable, top-of-the-line, environmentally sustainable equipment. We will also do with others, with Wisconsin, for the second train to Chicago, with other Midwestern states that are operating parallel. So collectively, we have better buying power, which will get the cost per unit down. And then we can also share equipment as needed. So with the ability to own our own equipment, to have newer equipment, and to share with the neighbors, it made sense to buy our own. It will take a few years to get our own, because of having to get in line for equipment.
Yeah, just like everything else, when you think of just trying to buy a car these days or get a computer or anything, there's just so much backed up still, I think, in some of the needs of the various parts. And I'm sure a computer aspect of this, the technology, is what we're going to be waiting on the most.
I want to make sure that people understand that their voices are important. And if they have any questions, if any of the listeners here today have any questions about what's going on or they're curious about something, please don't hesitate to contact us. Michelle and I are available through especially email. If you go to the eastcentraltransit.com website, our contact information is there, our phone numbers and our email addresses. Please don't hesitate to ask questions, because Jill is available, MnDOT is available. We need to know what kind of questions there are out there so that we can get your questions answered. Jill, do you want to also let the folks know the website would be great?
Yes, the website is northernlightsexpress.org, and there is a contact form on there. You fill it out, and it comes directly to me, so northernlightsexpress.org. And when you search NLX, you will also find a website that the Minnesota Transportation is managing, and that is another point to access all of us working on the project.
But the big news is really what happened at the legislature, and the fact that this is finally, after all these years, moving forward in a positive way.
Well, and I want to thank everyone who spoke up through all of these years. Mm-hmm. I want to thank the veterans who said, hey, my colleagues need a way to safely and conveniently get to the VA hospital in Minneapolis. And I want to thank the college students who said it's nerve-wracking to be driving on 35 interstate going up to Duluth. And 40% of the students at UMD are coming from the Twin Cities. And I want to thank the families that said, I want my vacation to start right away. I don't want my vacation to start with windshield time. I want to be enjoying my kids and the scenery.
Yeah.
Everyone who spoke up about the kind of life passenger rail can contribute to made a difference.
We've talked to so many people in our travels regarding transportation that it always amazes me how many people live in Minneapolis and have never been to Duluth because they don't drive, they don't have a car, they can get around easily in the city, which means they kind of are stuck there.
And I'm also talking to people who have been moving north. They want to live in Cambridge. They want to live in Hinckley, live in Pine City. They want a little breathing room. If they can afford a little more home, but they still need to work in the cities.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
After the pandemic, they don't need to work there 5 days a week. Life is really changing.
It sure is.
And NLX is going to contribute to making life better.
And the next generation is very different.
Yes.
So
How
they
see
will
things.
embrace
Yep.
this. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Jill. It's been a pleasure to talk with you. We will be in touch as things evolve.
Thank you. Always appreciate the chance to talk with you folks.
And this get-together is brought to you in part by our friends at MnDOT.